From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana, Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Muslim-run crowdfunding startup helps millions. Israel bombs Gaza as Muslims refuse to leave Al-Aqsa. U.S. lifts do not travel warnings from all countries. Afghanistan death toll from mysterious airstrike rises to at least 47. Priest tells Hindus to have more kids to prevent India from becoming an Islamic nation. Egyptians celebrate Ramadan with longest free Iftar table. Our top story tonight. This Ramadan launched Good, the world's largest crowdfunding platform for Muslims, hit a new milestone. It has registered 1 million donors since its inception. Soon after going online in 2013, Launch Good's first campaign raised money to install a basketball hoop at a mosque in Detroit. Since then, the platform has hosted more than 40,000 fundraising campaigns in 150 countries, helping raise more than $300 million. It has supported a variety of causes, including assisting Rohingya Muslim refugees and arranging food for Yemeni children. CEO Chris Abdurrahman Blovelt said the company's founders had a simple and clear vision to tap into a global community of Muslims who wanted to do good. Practicing Islamic traditions in Alaska presents unique challenges for Muslims, especially during the month of Ramadan. While Muslims fast from dawn until sunset during this time, in Alaska, daylight can last 20 to 22 hours during spring and summer. In an interview with the Alaska news source, Heather Barbour of Anchorage said not everyone in the community is able to fast that long for 30 days. This is why Muslims there follow fasting time in Makkah. About a decade ago, the Fiqh Council of North America gave Muslims in Alaska a non-binding ruling. This allowed them to follow Makkah's fasting hours, giving them more stability in when they can break their fast. Barbour said, when Ramadan falls in the summertime, basically we'll be breaking our fast when the sun is still up, and then in the wintertime, they're still fasting while it is dark. On Sunday, the Progressive Caucus of North Carolina's State Democratic Party revoked its endorsement of State Senator Valerie Foushee. The caucus cited Foushee's acceptance of thousands of dollars from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, an anti-Palestinian group. AIPAC has been influential in U.S. politics for decades. The caucus said it had unsuccessfully urged Foushee to reject $165,000 in funding from people associated with AIPAC. AIPAC supported more than 36 Republican politicians who objected to the certification of the 2020 presidential election results. Former President Donald Trump and his allies continue to baselessly claim the election results were fraudulent. Patrick Lyoya, a 26-year-old unarmed black man in Michigan, was killed earlier this month by a single shot to the back of his head, according to an independent autopsy report. Ben Crump, attorney for the Lyoya family, said the scientific evidence laid out in the autopsy depicts a horrific killing. Lyoya was shot by a still unidentified white Grand Rapids, Michigan police officer while he was on the ground. Crump says Lyoya's family believes he was the victim of an execution. He urged an investigation into whether Lyoya was profiled and if it is another classic case of driving while black. Lyoya, originally from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, died April 4th after the officer pulled him over because the license plate did not match the car he was driving. 4 videos released by the police department show Lyoya exiting the vehicle as the officer repeatedly tells him to get back in the car. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, has dropped its do not travel warning from all countries. No nations remain in the level 4 designation. Many countries that were at level 4 are now at level 3, meaning the CDC recommends travelers be up to date on their COVID-19 vaccinations before traveling. Anyone not vaccinated against the coronavirus should still avoid travel, the CDC said. More than 120 countries are now at level 3, or COVID-19 high. That includes Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, the UK, Japan, Iran, and Russia. Only 12 nations are at level 2, or COVID-19 moderate, while 55 countries are at level 1, or COVID-19 low. An update on Al-Aqsa mosque attacks and more news stories around the globe after this break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps. I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness when she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No me!
No justice!
No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned have brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum!
Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. In international news today, on Tuesday, Israel carried out its first airstrikes on Gaza in 3 months. They came in response to a homemade rocket fired from there as tensions soar after a weekend of Israeli police attacks at Al-Aqsa Mosque. The projectile crashed into the sea off Tel Aviv. Hours later, the Israeli Air Force said it hit a weapons manufacturing site in retaliation. Hamas, the group that controls Gaza, said it used its anti-aircraft defense to counter air raids. No casualties were reported, according to witnesses and security sources in Gaza. Meanwhile, images of Muslim individuals are going viral who refuse to leave Al-Aqsa Masjid. Here is a report by Saleha Farouk.
Muslims around Al-Aqsa continue to resist the Israeli apartheid trying to force them out of Al-Aqsa. This elderly person has brought in his own chair. Dressed in traditional Arab attire, he is sitting calmly. He does not want to leave his own mosque in his own neighborhood. This Palestinian reclining on his prayer rug, using his shoes as a pillow next to the Quran, refuses to leave the mosque courtyard. This brother is even more defying. This brother is simply relaxing nothing can move him. These sisters' Quran recitation cannot be postponed since it is their mosque. They are fearful of none except Allah. And these brothers are reciting Quran until they are lifted by Israeli soldiers. And this Palestinian Christian, Ra'id, spent the last few nights in Al-Aqsa Mosque with his fellow Palestinians to defend the holy site. This is Ramadan, alhamdulillah. Muslims stay longer in their mosques during Ramadan. Al-Aqsa is their mosque in their neighborhood. Palestinians did not come from just anywhere. They are indigenous people living in their ancestral lands. Palestinians continue to resist. This is Salaha Farouk from Toronto studios for Muslim Network TV.
At least 47 people have been killed in airstrikes in eastern Afghanistan. Saturday's pre-dawn attacks hit homes in the provinces of Khost and Kunar along the Pak-Afghan border, Afghan officials said. Pakistan has not claimed responsibility for the attacks. Meanwhile, U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said America is working with Pakistan to stabilize Afghanistan. Islamabad continues to urge Kabul to act against militants launching attacks from Afghan soil. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan opposed drone attacks on Afghanistan and blames the United States for conspiring to oust him from office earlier this month. In related news, Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan renewed accusations against the United States for its involvement in his dismissal earlier this month. Since being ousted through a vote of no confidence in the National Assembly, Khan has continued his campaign. He spoke to a massive gathering in Karachi, Pakistan's largest city, on Saturday. Khan claimed his removal from office is part of a foreign conspiracy carried out with the goal of enslaving Pakistanis to foreign powers. Khan said he wants to establish friendly relations with all countries and stressed he doesn't want his people to be slaves to anyone. An ancient prayer hall discovered beneath the iconic Al-Nuri Mosque in Iraq has prompted UNESCO to revise its restoration plan for the site. The monument in the city of Mosul was damaged heavily by ISIS. UNESCO is rebuilding the complex in partnership with the United Arab Emirates. The winning design was selected from an international competition. During excavations, a team of archaeologists and local workers found gaps in the mosque's foundation. They found 4 rooms believed to have been used for wudu, the ritual washing before prayers from the 12th century. The excavation also uncovered several artifacts, including jars, pottery fragments, pieces of carved stone, and coins. On Tuesday, leaders of the U.S., European nations, Canada, and Japan affirmed their commitment to providing security and economic and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said President Joe Biden convened the call with world leaders to discuss ongoing efforts to support Ukraine. They also discussed diplomatic engagements and efforts to continue imposing economic sanctions against Russia for its aggression. They talked about continuing close coordination with the G7, European Union, and NATO. Russia's war on Ukraine, which began February 24th, has led to thousands of deaths and millions being displaced. It has also spurred an exodus of global firms from Russia, including the technology, automotive, energy, retail, and various other sectors. Egyptian Muslims gathered at a street-long table to break their Ramadan fast in a mass iftar meal on the 15th day of the holy month of Ramadan on Saturday. The fast-breaking meal brought together roughly 6,000 Muslims and Christians in the suburb of Matariya in Egypt's capital, Cairo. Organizers said the event is meant to promote unity among people of different backgrounds, nationalities, and religions. Health authorities initially directed the governors to apply precautionary and preventive measures for COVID-19 to preserve the health and safety of people. After a 2-year hiatus due to the virus, Cairo began receiving requests to hold Mawa'id al-Rahman, or charity iftars, this Ramadan. On Sunday, a prominent Hindu priest urged Hindus in India to produce more children to prevent the country from becoming Hinduless in the coming decades. Yati Satyadevanand Saraswati said India is a democracy because Hindus are in the majority, but he claimed Muslims are increasing their population by giving birth to many children in a planned way. Saraswati said that is why the group is asking Hindus to give birth to more children to avoid India becoming an Islamic nation. He was speaking on the first day of a 3-day meeting of Hindu priests, seers, and leaders from across the country in the town of Mubarakpur in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Saraswati organized a Hindu parliament last December, announcing a 10 million Indian rupee award to recruit Hindu suicide bombers. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
To stop this genocide, we need your help. Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. Brothers and sisters, we all watch the Allahu Akbar lady from India. She's amazing, isn't she? She's neither compromising her hijab nor her education. She's standing tall. We must stand with her. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her. But it is not just hijab, brothers and sisters. Indian Muslims are facing genocide.
Genocide that we face in India is not a new phenomenon. India has had several genocides.
They are attacked every day. Even the Indian government admits there has been more than 1,800 organized attacks on Muslims, but they call it riot. 660 people are hanged to death in India, lynched in broad daylight, sometimes just because they were accused of eating beef. Yes, accusation of eating beef can kill a human being in India. We cannot remain silent, can we? Alhamdulillah, OIC has spoken, that is good, but why in the world United Nations is silent? The UN has a responsibility to protect. It has a duty to prevent genocide. Sisters and brothers, we must stand with Indian Muslims and other minorities. We are free, they are not. We are not attacked, they are under attack day and night. Let's do our job. I have signed this UN petition. I ask you to sign it now. Thank you so much.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back. Let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid for our in-depth analysis segment. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Amnesty International continues to issue its annual reports. And their annual reports are not kind to many people. But at this time, there quite a bit of focus is on governments and billionaires who are exploiting people during the COVID. But they have also comments on different parts of the world. To discuss with us is Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa, Shenilla Mohamed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam and assalamu alaikum to your viewers.
Welcome to Muslim Network TV. Tell us how political leaders and corporates are profiting from COVID.
Well, our State of the World Report 2021 has not been very kind towards political leaders and towards corporates, because what we found is that there was a major collusion between these two groups, particularly around the issue of COVID vaccines. I mean, what we found was that profits were more important than people's lives, that some lives were more important than others. We saw the way in which richer countries started to stockpile vaccines instead of sending all vaccines to to all countries around the world. And even in a crisis, we were unable as humanity to come together. So let me give you one example. By the end of 2021, only 8% of Africans on the continent were actually vaccinated. That pharmaceutical companies who were boasting that they would make around $54 billion by the end of 2021 through their COVID vaccines, only 2% of those vaccines went to poorer countries of the world, including South Asia, including other poor regions in the world, where the rich countries were stockpiling. Their people were getting 2-3 jabs, including the booster. Most people in Africa and in South Asia and other poor countries were not getting the vaccinations that they needed. And of course, this had a knock-on effect, which we can discuss, later.
Why in the world institutions like World Health Organization and United Nations, which were created with a whole lot of hope, and why they fail in this area?
Well, look, the United Nations and the World Health Organization tried. They set up the COVAX facility, which was really about, trying to put out an equal distribution of vaccines around the world. But, the problem was that nationalism kicked in. And what we're seeing is like a new world order where nationalism really, takes over. And most countries are only looking inwards. But, the saddest thing about it all was that, countries don't realize that, they can vaccinate their people all they like, but unless the whole world is given the weapons they need to be able to fight pandemics like COVID, nobody's actually safe, because the mutants and the variants and all of that will continue to flourish. And so, yes, the institutions failed, the governments failed, and I think, what we saw in 2021 was actually really poor global leadership. The global leaders of the world actually failed the world, and we did not get the leadership that we wanted around the world in order for us to really come through this pandemic in a way that was not devastating. And, the impacts of this really selfish behavior by pharmaceuticals and by leaders really had a devastating impact. For example, in Africa, if I'm to tell you that 8% of the population was vaccinated by the end of 2021, well, what does that mean in real terms? It means that schools were unable to open. It means that healthcare facilities that were already overburdened were even more overburdened as they were dealing with cases of COVID and people dying. And, it just meant that all infrastructure was really cracking under the added burden of COVID. So, we saw major crises taking place during 2021.
Do you think that nationalism, which you say gave rise during pandemic, while pandemic required international cooperation and connection, is that just a temporary change, or you see nationalism will continue to build and disrupt international cooperation, especially between the corporations and individuals in countries where they are not based?
Nationalism was not a new thing. I think COVID just exacerbated it. I mean, even before COVID, we saw the rise of right-wing nationalism. We saw it in India. We saw it in America. We saw it in other parts of the world. And I think that, it really, what we saw in COVID, during COVID, was actually an outcome of that nationalism that was taking hold around the world. And, I think, the saddest thing about that form of nationalism is that what it, what it does, it gives rise to even further inequalities. It sends out a strong message that our people are more important than everybody else in the world. I mean, we saw it today. We see today playing out in Ukraine. I mean, one of the things that our report talks about is that, Ukraine has showed us that when governments want to do something about refugees and asylum seekers and those running away from conflict or from poverty, they can do something. I mean, we saw how they all came to the table, the rich countries around Ukraine, and it was the people that looked like them that mattered to them, not the people from Syria or other countries. And in fact, one of the things we document in our report is that when Syrian refugees actually got to Denmark, the Danish government told them to hand over all their valuables so that they would sell those valuables and use those in order to sustain them while they stayed in their country. They didn't do that with the Ukrainians. And actually, under international law, they're supposed to provide protection. So again, this thing about some lives are more important than others really has started, to show up quite starkly in the world. And unless we do something about it, the world is going to continue to be unequal, and we are going to continue to see people dying and conflict around the world.
You mentioned India along with the nationalism. Amnesty International was forced out of India, but you continue to have an opinion. How are you collecting your facts from India?
Well, Amnesty International is a global movement of 10 million people. And, even though, we have had huge problems in India and, the government there has tried its utmost to shut us down and to, stop us from doing what we're doing, we will never stop. I mean, we have our ways of gathering evidence. Even now in Ukraine, we have people on the ground gathering evidence. We have crisis teams on the ground. We still have members in India, even though we may not have an office. And I think that, that these governments may try, very hard, but they're not going to stop organizations like ours from really gathering the evidence that we need in order to, firstly, hold a mirror to what's happening in the world, and secondly, to hold people to account. Our people are in Ukraine at the moment gathering evidence. And, not just India. I mean, we had to close our office recently in Hong Kong. We had to close down the national office. We had to close down the regional office, but that's not going to ever stop us from talking about what China is doing. So, again, during Ukraine, we had to move our people out of Moscow, out of Russia. Many of our people had to be moved out of Ukraine, but that will never stop us from talking about what's going wrong there. So again, I feel like one of the things that organizations like ours and the media, I mean, the media also, we saw that the media during 2021 was really not safe. I mean, during our analysis, we saw that 1/3 of countries around the world actually introduced a new legislation in order to block the media and to, make the media stop doing what they're supposed to be doing. So all of us are under threat, not just organizations like Amnesty, but media, other, civil society organizations. And I think it's really important that we don't allow ourselves to be bullied and pushed into a corner and be muzzled. I mean, that's what states want. They want us to shut up. And I think that that's never going to happen with Amnesty International.
Thanks to your membership, right? That's
absolutely
a good thing to have. So India shut down your offices, but you used to have members who probably continue to communicate, and hopefully they will not be traced and harassed and murdered, because, Reporters Without Borders came up with the report that India media freedom ranking is 142nd, which is below Burma and Afghanistan. I was shocked to see that type of situation. So what is the situation of human rights in India now?
Well, again, in India, I mean, I feel like, India, like other parts of the world, there's a nationalism, there are a lot of blasphemy laws, there's a lot of harassment of civil society organizations like ours. There are trumped up charges. I mean, Amnesty staff had to face trumped up charges, and the human rights violations are really quite quite severe in India. But it's the same in Afghanistan, Pakistan as well. We've seen, lots of human rights violations violations, particularly around women. Gender-based violence is on the increase. Blasphemy laws are there, and people are being persecuted for their beliefs. So, it's really across the board where rights are being violated by states. And I think, one of the only hope or the bright light that came out during 2021 was the fact that people were determined not to allow these states to cower them and to shut them up. And so we saw a rise in people power. We saw people taking to the streets. We saw women taking to the streets, and I think that is what's going to save us in the long run, is that, when people decide that they are not going to be, put into a corner or shut up by their states, and they're going to hold them to account. So really, it was a bad year for human rights across the board in all countries. And, Afghanistan, for example, we saw 300 media houses shut down in 2021. So, it has not been a good year for media as well.
So, Shenilla, Amnesty also says that Russia is doing in Ukraine what they did in Syria. Could you shed some light? What are the common features there?
Well, Amnesty International basically has said that, what Russia has done in Ukraine actually could amount to war crimes. The evidence we've gathered is, we've seen that they've been using cluster bombs. We've seen, that this is actually an act of aggression. Amnesty has defined it as an act of aggression, which is against international law. And we've also noted in our evidence gathering that, the use of certain arms and ammunition is also against international law. So, for example, international law states quite clearly that cluster bombs should not be used in spaces where there are civilians. And this has been used indiscriminately by Russia, causing huge amount of damage and killings of civilians. So again, we are a legal organization. We look at what is happening in the rights violation space against, international human rights law and the laws of those countries. And, from what we're seeing, from where we are sitting, Russia most probably has violated international law. And we are now calling on the International Criminal Court to actually investigate Russia and to declare whether what Russia has done there is crimes against humanity, and to take the action required against Russia. So for us, what Russia has done is an act of aggression. An act of aggression is in violation of international law.
Thank you so much, Shenilla Mohamed, for your time. Executive Director of Amnesty International, based in South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.